Well, hi there. It's Laura, and welcome to the class of 74. You're in the real bullpen today. This is me, au naturel, in my studio, aka my office. And the reason why I'm talking to you is that I realize that some people come to my website to listen to the podcast, the Class of 74, and they're completely bewildered about what this is. Do you want to do something Friday night? She swallowed. Can't. I'm babysitting. How about Saturday? I'm caddying in the morning, carrying 2 bags, so I'll be rich. Boys made a ton of tips caddying, while girls were still stuck at $1 an hour babysitting. I'll even buy you a pizza, Cynthia. My parents are taking the boat out, but we can go to the beach. I'll get some beer. Evan really did have the best eyes and the longest lashes. She wiped the corner of her mouth with the back of her hand because she didn't have anything else to do it with. My parents are going to Forest Hills with the Fitzgeralds Saturday, and Annabelle's thinking about having a party. Don't let her, he said at once. The whole high school will crash it and trash her house. Come to the beach instead. I'll give Mark some gas money and he can drive us around. As I said, I'm Laura, and I am the creator, the writer, and the narrator of the Class of 74. As you can tell, my voice is not the greatest. It's not the voice I was born with. It was slightly altered in a car crash, which I was very fortunate to survive. But this podcast came out of that car accident in a weird way, because during my recovery, which took a very long time, I loved listening to podcasts because they were so intimate. You know, you just like curl up with it at night and just listen. And I looked for a show like the Class of 74 for 6 years because I wanted to listen to it. I wanted to listen to some new fiction, an ongoing story, like a soap opera or something, a continuing story. And I found continuing stories that were very good, that they were all either science fiction or horror. You noticed that I lost weight? Cynthia nodded. I think maybe a little too much. Her eyes flared. Did I ask your opinion? Betsy, we used to be friends, Cynthia said. I don't understand what's happening. You're out of control, Cynthia. Cynthia's mouth fell open. I'm out of control. Yes, you're out of control. You shouldn't be hanging out with that girl from California. She's screwing you up. What are you talking about? I barely know her. I warned you, Betsy said, backing away. Wait a minute. Cynthia went over to her, lowering her voice. You screwed her up with that herb saint on Saturday. I didn't force her to drink it. She wanted it. Her eyes moved to somewhere behind Cynthia. That wasn't all she wanted. What's that supposed to mean? But in terms of someone writing a big sprawling story that I wanted to listen to, I couldn't find it. So after my 50th high school reunion, when nobody could hear me at the dinner, I came home and my other half suggested, well, why don't you write your class's story and read it to them as a podcast, and then they could hear you, right, with my ventilator voice? And I got very excited about the idea. Mimi's hand shot up. I'll take a ride. Get in, Jocko shouted. Then his eyes shifted to Clark. But not you. Ouch, Cynthia thought. Clark was a weirdo, but he never did anything that hurt anybody. Clark's whole body had stiffened. Mrs. Schuyler entrusted me with the girls' safety. Where they go, I go. Give it up, Clarky. He's not taking you, Mimi said, pushing past him to reach for the door. A Volkswagen bus of upperclassmen was slowing down to see what was going on. Between the fumes, the muffler, Jocko, and Clark, Cynthia could feel her social status diminishing by the second. Then she glanced down to find Jocko staring at her chest. When his eyes finally came up, he grinned. "Oh, foxy lady," he said, imitating Jimi Hendrix. So in the beginning, the class of 74 was for my class at Darien High School, class of 74. But very quickly, it became its own world. It wasn't Darien, it was a town called Brighton, which was similar to Darien, which was a suburban town, a commuter town in Fairfield County, Connecticut, where in 1971, when the show opens, all the fathers get on the train and go into New York City to work at big corporations, while the wives stay home and look after the kids in the houses. That's the way it was. "Oh, he is he?" her father said with a faint hint of sarcasm. "Aren't we forgetting a little something, Missy?" he said. "Like asking for permission to go?" "Well, I just assumed since it was Mr. Gagliardi, it would be okay." "You still need permission," her mother said. "You can't go gallivanting around as you wish. You're only 15. "Well, can I go?" Her mother turned to Mimi. "Are you planning to go too, dear?" "Mimi," Cynthia said. "Why would Mimi go?" "Because it is not wise to send a 15-year-old girl and a grown man anywhere by themselves," her mother said. "Yeah, right," Cynthia scoffed. "We're talking about Mr. Gagliardi. He's not just some man." "I wouldn't care if he was Richard Milhouse Nixon," her father said. Of course, everybody smoked in those days. Everybody drank. And, there was no such thing as a cell phone or social media. There wasn't even an answering machine or a Xerox machine yet. We had like carbon paper, right? You called somebody and they weren't home. Could mean they were down at the store or they could be in Europe. There was no way to know which it was because if the phone just rang and rang and rang. Anyway, high school was different in those days. We had a lot of fun, my class. Certainly I did. None of these kids were musicians. She could tell. There was not going to be any startling revelation of a musical genius who had only come to light in this guitar class. Mr. Coates announced because they had mastered C chord and G7, they could play an entire song now. They were all going to play Clementine. Cynthia laughed out loud. Was this a swinging class? Clementine? But she saw that Mr. Coates was having a hard time rousing enthusiasm for this adventure. So she said, "Wow, with only 2 chords?" "Yes," he said brightly. "All right, everyone, hands in the C chord position. The count will be 3 measures of C chord and then 1 of G7, like this." He demonstrated, strumming 1, 2, 3. "Then after that, we alternate between C and G7 with every count, like this." He demonstrated again. Everybody looked completely confused. I've always been a writer, and I've always wanted to read stories to people, to entertain them. And for many years, I was a full-time novelist. I published 14 novels, the most famous of which was called Riverside Drive. And that book, I started writing it because I had been looking for a mainstream novel that had a certain plot twist in it, and I couldn't find it. Truly, I read book after book after book. And if you get to know me and we talk more about the podcast and about writing and stuff, you'll understand what the story was that I was looking for. But that's how I became a novelist, was writing the book I wanted to read. So the Class of 74 is the story I want to hear. And I want it fresh. I want somebody writing it and giving me an episode that has a cliffhanger ending so that I come back the next week and hear the next episode. And I just keep going. She looks pretty hot-blooded to me. Hot-blooded, Mimi said. Mr. Schuyler thinks she's sexy, dear, her mother said. Actually, I do too. She is sexy. Ugh, Cynthia thought, standing up. This was creepy. Everybody, including myself, has some painful memories about high school in general or childhood. You know, there's nothing unusual about that. But I don't want to deal with any of that stuff in the Class of 74. This is meant to bring me and you out of our heads where we are today and go back and have an adventure. But I control the adventure in a certain way. For examples, I used to be scared of bullies in high school. Well, guess what? In the Class of 74, please know that all bullies will meet their comeuppance at some point. That's right. They're not going to get away with anything for long. Cynthia moved forward a little when Evan's group appeared to be breaking up. She started to make her way toward him, but another police officer reached him before she did, and she backed off. Evan was still pressing a hand on his back and was looking around. Now that she was closer, she did recognize the boy with the swollen eye and bleeding lip. That was Andrew. He was the captain of the soccer team. He met Cynthia's eyes and walked over. Cynthia, right? Right, she said. How are you? How is your summer? She looked at him. You're all beat up, Andrew. Who cares how I am? What happened to you and Evan? Oh, I'll be fine. He'll be fine. And it was worth it to hear Wronski say uncle. She pointed, that guy's Wronski? Big mouth, big gut, Vic Wronski. Also, remember like having a broken heart? Well, people have broken hearts, but it doesn't last really long in the Class of 74. Usually another love interest pops up pretty fast. Then the insecurities of high school. You remember when you were 15? This is how old I was in 1971 in September. And about how you looked. Cynthia was so tired of being self-conscious she could scream. Her braces were finally off, so her smile at least looked good, but she still had the nose, the big nose, which her sister had made sure Cynthia understood prevented her from being pretty. Cynthia's dad, whose nose it was, said it was a nose of distinction, and she shouldn't make such a big deal about it. But it was a big deal. What girl wanted to be told she would grow into her nose, that she was going to be stunning at 40? 40! You're going with me back to my high school days to see what it was like. And you're going to meet kids who are like my friends. And you're going to get to know Brighton, which is a lot like my hometown. And you're going to have fun. And you're going to go 1,000,000 miles away. Pony boys are still cold, Patrick announced, prompting the girls to cheer. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a Swiss Army knife. What's a pony boy? Mimi asked. A 7-ounce Miller. He popped the cap on one and handed it to Cheryl. Oh, it's so cute, Cheryl cried. She held it up so the back seat could see it. Looks more like a pony girl to me, Katie said. Technically, it's just called a pony, Patrick explained, popping the cap off another, so you can call it whatever you want. Do you want one? Yes, Katie and Mimi said simultaneously. Cynthia smiled. Everyone was excited. Patrick turned around to hand it to Katie. Remember, We need to keep them out of the line of sight. If Clay gets caught with beer, Cynthia said, he's off the team, right?